let's bring in the lovely and ever charming Morgan Maassen, please. So I've known Morgan a very long time, and Morgan's been a good friend of mine, someone we talk quite a bit of business about. We've traveled a fair bit about together. Some amazing photo contests we got to participate in together in Hong Kong, Scottsdale, Arizona, all over the place. And it's been just a good friendship. I think one of the great things that I love about this in our community is it's not competition. It's we kind of push each other. I sound ideas off Morgan. He helps me. I help him. And that's a great thing about this community. But let's let him speak instead of just having him sit there. Hi, Morgan.
Hi, everyone. My name is Morgan Maassen. I'm from Santa Barbara, California. And like Zak said, I've known him for, I think, about a decade now.
Whew, that is a long time.
And I know, I think I knew of Zak before he knew of me, and I looked up to him. I mean, even the first time I went to Hawaii. And then we ended up working for Surfer Magazine together and working for Red Bull together, going, like you said, traveling with the Red Bull Illume, and a lot of other adventures too. Tahiti, Hawaii. I think we've crossed paths in Europe even and stuff, and it's just been it's been a blast.
Absolutely, yeah. It's been a long, good friendship and relationship, and one we just keep growing. And we're stoked to have you here and share some of your imagery.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. And tell us a little bit about that Jordy film. That was an epic film, and one thing that I always admire very much about your work is your use of like blacks and colors. Like your black and white opening, that was just such rich black and whites. And everyone thinks, oh, it's easy to change, to black and white or to shoot or to do in that way. But like, there's something very different about how rich a lot of your blacks are when you're shooting that. I mean, was that a long time coming that you've kind of built to that? And then we'll talk a little bit about the Jordy film.
As far as like color correction and the way I showcase my final work, um, it's kind of all over the place. Like some of my photos have just crazy color pop, and some of my photos are really minimal and blown out. And then as far as film goes, I think it's equal as all over the place, because the film projects just jump from subject to subject, whether it's it could be like a travel piece or a surfing piece or a weird fine art film and stuff. But I try to always do two things, which is one, kind of capture a bit of a mood or a feel or something. And that's like the introduction to that Jordy piece was very dark and black and white and kind of gritty and grainy, because honestly, those two sessions that are amalgamate into that one section were just really crappy, rainy, windy days.
Wow.
And that's kind of how I was feeling. I love the footage. I wanted to utilize it somehow. I wanted to kind of, and I wanted to make like I wanted to make Jordy's film, instead of being like this really cohesive 7-8 minute ballad, I wanted to make it like a bit more broken apart. I wanted to show him just surfing technique wise. I wanted to show him at home in South Africa, and then kind of wrap it up with Indonesia. And ironically, it did come out kind of cohesive. Like it flows pretty well together, but like it's the black and white, like especially to someone like you as a photographer's eye, would be like, what the heck is that doing there? But it's also something that makes me very happy to shoot that way, and to deliver kind of a little segment in that session.
Wow.
Looking like that.
Oh, that was an incredible film. I really like it. Like how that started as an intro and you like led into it and brought it together. How long did that take you to shoot that piece on Jordy?
So I've been working on this film series with O'Neill based upon all their different like kind of marquee team writers. And what happened is we did a big trip to Indonesia, and we absolutely scored. We spent about 8 days in the Mentawais and then another 5 days on Bali, and every day was better than the last. So after all the lifestyle and the board shorts and the bikinis and everything had been shot, I had this massive hard drive filled with A-grade footage that just needed a home. So Kieran Horn, who's the marketing director at O'Neill and a good friend of mine, I basically convinced him. I said, your athletes, they need films to showcase how amazing they are. They don't. And so we set out to make this little series. And after that, I started filling the blanks. Like I went to South Africa to hang out with Jordy. I went to Iceland with Imogen Caldwell. I went to Santa Cruz in Australia with Noah Wegrich. And we kept doing all these rad trips to make these little films. And I think also it's just kind of it kind of kills two birds with one stone, because on one hand, I mean, everybody, every brand, every athlete, everyone needs constant social media content.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I was able to pledge and say, I've got tons of stories for you. I've got tons of frame grabs and photos and short films and 60-second stuff. But my goal, not, it almost sounds subversive, but my goal was to like put out one key 6 to 7 minute film on each of these people and
Wow.
blast out through my channels and try to showcase it like, I mean, I think in make a bit more of a thoughtful film than like the average surf edit that's been,
Absolutely.
coming out the last couple of years.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. And you know what? You kind of hit on a point that I think is such an important piece. It's something that you and I identify and see. And this is how, these viewers that are watching, how you can progress and really cultivate and, get what you want to create and what you want to do. You saw the opportunity. You had the footage. And why let it just sit there? Why say, we shot all this, my job is done, killer, awesome. But you pitched that next idea. You went to that next level. You created it and curated the whole thing, where they were like, oh, you're going to deliver us this whole package? You're like, yes, I just got to go to South Africa here and there. They're like, killer, go ahead. So guys, that's what it takes, to get that little, you got to push yourself to be able to get to do that and go out of your comfort zones, but also visualize, I think, that creativity process you just talked about.
Absolutely. I mean, I think like I've always looked up to you for this, and there's
Mm-hmm.
a few people in our. I mean, we run with a small clique of in the surf world of photographers and filmmakers and stuff. But what really, you can take the best photos ever. I mean, there's people that run circles around both you and me. But I think what is absolutely key is not so much even the work that you create, but the way that you can capitalize on
Yeah.
opportunities.
Yeah.
And that's communication with athletes, with brands, understanding places like your knowledge of pipeline, your knowledge of Tahiti, your knowledge of Central America, and then your repertoire amongst the Hawaiian crew, and the fact that they trust you as a confidant to travel
Yeah.
and to understand big swells. That's like the
Yeah.
second tier of what we
Yeah.
do, and it's actually on, I mean, honestly, the most important tier, because that's what taking a photo only takes a split second, or making one of these films, I mean, that's only a handful of days and a handful of hours on
Yeah.
those days
Yeah.
shooting. But as you described in your tangent, the
Yeah.
amount of energy that goes into orchestrating the marketing directors and the budgets and the planes and the
Yeah.
trains and the travel, and being able to seduce so many other people to kind of jump on board to those
Absolutely.
ideas. That's the dance, and
Absolutely.
that's what's it's really fun, it's really hard, and it's very entertaining, and that's what unlocks
Mm.
all the opportunities, where in fact then you get on the plane and go to Tahiti, and swimming out of Chopu is the easiest part out of it all. It's like
All the hard
it's
work
a
is
profound
done.
irony. Oh yeah, it's a profound irony of our
Mm.
occupation.
Yeah,
So
I think
it's
that's a very good point, and I feel that is something we excel in, is working alongside and with a client, and that is almost an art in itself. Because you're right, by the time you get to that point, you've already pitched, created, done all the hard work, and now you're there shooting. We know this. That's what we're good at. We can get in the water, but doing that fine dance with the clients is a very important and very thing, and that will gain you more clients. Working alongside the clients and being easy to work with, even though the industry is large, it's very small in the sense that, hey, that guy was terrible to work with. That guy was just difficult throughout the way, dragged his feet, got hammered the whole time. Like, hey, you ain't going to get a call back on those things, and no matter how good of the work it is. So I think that's a very good
absolutely.
lesson of like, being able to work with your clients, being able to identify their needs without them even knowing. A lot of times working as an agency, it's to tell the client what they need, what they want to see, what they should be doing. And as a photographer, that means you can be doing that too. You don't have to rely on the agency that hired you. You can bring those ideas to them, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, it's like I had a really interesting conversation with someone at the other end of the spectrum, a
Mm-hmm.
younger 17-year-old photographer that's local to Santa Barbara. And he came to me and said, I want everything you have. And I gave him a very elongated version of what we're talking about
Mm-hmm.
now. And it's funny because it's kind of, to summarize that, is it's a threefold thing. Is one, you showcase your best work, you showcase who you are and what you offer. People find you or you find them. Two, is that then you're able to convince them to work with them. You're able to show them what you can offer, massage these jobs until they're finalized, or these opportunities. And then the third part is shooting it. But really, shooting it is such a minutia of this whole process that all the other stuff, the editing and everything, the presentation of it after, it's a very complicated and massive undertaking just to take one photo or one video and to not just let it exist and put it out on social media or put on your website, but to actually, like I said, to use it to represent and brand yourself, and then all the way through to continue off that and to promote it and let it become an entity and to grow and change. Like this Jordy film, it got a staff pick on Vimeo. It's at almost 100,000 views.
Congrats.
And it's filtered through all of his sponsors, Red Bull, Oakley, and everything. And even though I made it intentionally just to kind of as a gift to the surf world and to get people excited about his surfing, I've done a lot of kind of heavy lifting on the back end to make sure people see it and the right people see it, because that will then, it will continue to exist on as an entity. It wasn't just me swimming around in Indonesia with a camera and then me sitting at home in my pajamas editing for a couple days.
You already have the footage. That's the beauty. You had all of that. You had shot it, so it's even better. I mean, what a calling card for you. That's something that's going to live on through those channels, through those things. And the people don't always understand a lot of this time, putting out these works, putting out these pieces that you're very passionate about, very proud of. These could be those ones that get you those bigger jobs. These are the ones that get you those extra calling cards, that clout. Jordy's going to be calling, hey, Morgan, I want to create a full masterpiece of a feature film. These are all those types of things that grow and more and can do. So, we had a question for both of you: single image stories versus long-term projects. How do you feel on that, Morgan? What do you prefer, us single image stories or long-term projects for you, bro?
That's actually an epic question, because I have a couple photos that I'm both immensely proud of and have carried so much weight on their own as far as the opportunity, the doors they've opened, and the kind of attention they've garnered. I mean, a perfect example is that first Red Bull photo from the Red Bull Loom. I think we both won categories in 2013. I had this photo of I had a bunch of kids, and they were in the lineup at Cloudbreak, and I just took a photo looking up at them, and I was like, "Cool, great photo. On to the next one." But I submitted that, and it got so much attention that photo is a photo that I still make prints of for interior designers. I still syndicate to clients around the world, and editorial. And it's amazing how much, honestly, if you looked at this big ball of my career and my life, that photo accounts for a massive part of it.
I know those ones.
Silly little photo I took while I was just swimming around in between waves. It was a split second. And it's funny how that works. Whereas then at the same time, I have so many photos I've poured so much time and energy into, and series and bodies of work, and they don't account for nearly as much as that one single photo. But the growth and the trajectory, and the over that trajectory, and the personal growth, and then on top of that too, the people I met and the opportunities, and then the other single photos. I mean, it's such a intense and long and convoluted path that I think you need to find a balance between both, because I know there's a couple of photographers I really admire where I look at their work, and honestly, there's not a single photo I say I would want that on my wall, but their whole body of work is breathtaking, and that elevates them to become one of my top 3 or 4 photographers. And that's a very interesting concept to me, because I personally, I think a lot of my photos, they're in their minimalism and in their compositions, they don't communicate well with other photos. It's very hard for me to connect A to B to C to D in photo series and stuff. And so I almost am jealous and really admire that in other photographers, where they can show you a body of work and it's like reading a book with chapters. And but at the same time, in having these really individualistic photos, they exist as islands where, like I told you about that photo in the Red Bull Loom, I probably have 10 or 15 other photos that they're on their own path and program through the art industry, the photo industry, the surf world, the action sports world, whatever. And that's kind of pretty cool too. I don't have to go around with a body of work and say, here's my book, here's my gallery, here's my everything. I can just have one photo out in the wild doing its own thing.
Absolutely.
So I think to answer the question without really answering it is that you have to. It's always good to focus on taking the best photo possible, and a photo that can really be
Mm-hmm.
a standalone knockout. And I think that's because it's an embodiment of your best work, trying to get the best composition, the best artistic features, technical ability, whatever it may be. But as a photographer, if you want to say, like, if you say that you transcend into the art world, and if you're an artist
Mm-hmm.
and you can really tell a story or build a body of work, there's something very beautiful
Yeah,
about that. And that's
absolutely.
where, like, if someone sat me down and showed me a book, and it was a photo series of 5-10 years of seascapes or jungle photos or whatever, I mean, any one photo might be breathtaking,
Yeah.
but to see that and to see that story is a whole different
Yeah.
tier of storytelling
Yeah.
and a whole different tier of artistry.
Yeah. Whew.
So it goes both
Right.
ways,
Right.
really,
Right.
honestly, but I
Yeah.
think both are equally as important.
I love it. Let's take one more question and then we'll jump into some of your photos and we'll go back and forth and we'll circle back to all these questions at the end. So we're going to talk about, for both photographers, how long did it take you to find and define your photography style, and what photographers have inspired your work? I think, Morgan, you have a very distinct style where I can tell. I mean, I don't know if that's just because I know you so well. I see images and then I see other ones and I'm like, that's Morgan. And then it's like, oh no, just a copy of Morgan. So, it's something very beautiful that I feel you defined. When you came onto the scene, I remember seeing it, and it was such a wildly different style of editing and the way you shot it that it very much stood apart. And that was where it kind of like came in and it really kind of like disrupted. I remember it just seeing it as you kind of came in with Follow the Light and many of those things. It really started to stand apart. And it was something just so beautifully different. Like how did you kind of define your style? Where did that come from? And what do you kind of attribute that to?
um I don't really know. I guess, like, as a kid, I always wanted to be a painter,
Mm-hmm.
and I was obsessed with art. I
Yep.
studied art history and art and painting and mixed media extensively, and actually fell into graphic design early on. And so when I started fiddling out of the camera, I just had it on a shoulder strap, and I'd ride my bike to my office, and I'd ride my bike home and take photos of the skate park and birds and trees and people and stuff. I actually didn't shoot surfing for almost the first 6-7 months, because I would just rather go surfing
Yeah.
and take photos on the hike to the beach
Mm-hmm.
or on the drive home or whatever. And and in that 6 months, I had absolutely zero ambition to become a photographer
Mm-hmm.
or to do anything. I just was really curious. And what I landed on is, my dad had this really old vintage set of Nikon lenses from the 60s or late 60s, early 70s, that he had bought, even, I think, secondhand. And I put those on the very cheapest, most basic Costco DSLR body I could get my hands on. And I really like that. And then I really love that you can crank the exposure to get rid of, like, a lot of dust spots
Mm-hmm.
and unnecessary details.
Nice.
So I just blew everything
Yeah.
out. And that's in that 6 months, I shot a bunch of really overexposed rubbish photos. But I was able to really, I did that also because I mean, actually, it's funny. It's not even indicative of the painting or the art styles
Yeah.
I like, but that's what I think I had the most fun shooting, and the way I was able to express myself in photography the most. And I really loved minimal compositions and textures and details.
Mm.
And so in that 6 months, I was like, this is the kind of photos I like to take. I
Mm-hmm.
don't like to take anything else. I hate using flashes. I hate using zoom lenses. I don't like rapid burst,
Mm-hmm.
multi frame per second photos.
Yeah.
And so I cut all that stuff out immediately. Before I even engaged it, I cut it out. I try it once and never look back. And so when I started shooting surfing, I was probably about 19 and a half now, like, let's say 6 months had transpired since I
Mm-hmm.
started filming with cameras. And and I just used that mindset, and I'm incredibly stubborn. And so I just did exactly what I wanted. And so as I started shooting surfing, I'd go up and down California, went to Hawaii, and then I started kind of propagating the internet and then sending to magazines my work. And I think this is where I also only showed exactly what I wanted to
Mm-hmm.
show, nothing else. I just showed those photos that were fit my agenda. And if someone said, I remember, like, Pete Terrace, who was the photo editor of Surfing Magazine at the time and became a very good friend very quickly. he said, you should try taking like these landscapes that are a bit more pulled back, or like, a bit less overexposed so I can work with them more. I was like, no, like that's not my,
It's not
like,
me.
I would not,
That does
I'm
make me
taking that
happy.
photo. It's not my photo,
Yeah.
so I'm not going to do it. And like, close a lot of doors very quickly when you're that stubborn, especially in the photo world. But at the same time, that's how I very clearly defined the style that you then went on to say that like you recognized. And that's the flip side, is that by having a recognizable style, I think it kind of cancels out the missed opportunities in being a very stubborn, prudish
Yeah,
person.
but
So
it's true to
it's,
you, and that's the thing. You
yeah,
stuck to your vibe and what you wanted to see him produce, rather than reforming and like going to like, this is what everyone shoots and this is how. So try pull it back, or do the, or try to lighten this, or try to not. You did yours, and I think that's the beauty of like editing, is it's subjective. It's how you view the image, how you saw the moment, and how you want to do it. No two need to be exactly the same, and that's the beauty
100%.
of photography, from you shooting it to how you edit and show it. And so I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yep.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Between Sets. Make sure to like and subscribe to be tuned in on all future episodes. Thank you.